my name is Katie. Welcome to my channel, Duck Potatoes World. Today is a special day. I have had my Dean & Bean circular sock machine for exactly 1 year and 1 day. So I thought it would be fun to look back on the year and kind of see lessons that I've learned and advice I would give to people that are looking into buying a sock machine and just kind of go down memory lane a little bit. So I'm going to link the video from June 29th of 2022 down below so that if you want to see me unboxing my sock machine the first day that I get it, you can watch that. I'm going to kind of go in the same order that I unboxed things. I'm going to go back through that same order and discuss those things that I unboxed and different things about that. So on that note, the first thing I want to talk about was the first thing I unboxed out of my box last year, and that was these little cast-on bonnets. So a lot of people ask if they can make their own. Do they really need to buy a cast-on bonnet? And the answer is you don't need to. You certainly can make your own, but I really like not having to make these. I like that they were already made, and that way the first day I had my machine, I could take it out, put on a cast-on bonnet, and knit a tube. So if you're looking at getting a sock machine, specifically a Dean & Bean 3D printed circular sock machine, I recommend that you go ahead and buy the bonnet already made. It just makes life easier. The next thing I pulled out of that big box was my V-hook. So your V-hook is one way to hang weights from your project. You kind of slide it up inside the sock and you put the weight, sorry about the crinkling, you put the weight in the bag, then you put the bag on the hook. Then you put the hook into the toe of the sock and set this ring, and then it makes weight. I thought I might use this. I thought I would really like it. The truth is, I almost never use it. If I knit a cuff down sock, I just leave the weight in the bonnet and use my cable ring to move it up. When I knit a toe up sock, I just set the weight in the toe. So I've tried it a few times just to see if maybe I like it, but the truth is I really don't use it. Now I might at some point, if I wanted to put more than one weight in my sock at the same time, this might work better, because I have tried putting like my large weight and my small weight in a sock simultaneously, and that doesn't go well. The small weight falls off. And so I guess if I wanted to double up on weights, this might be useful, but the truth is I rarely ever use it. I probably could have done without it. The next thing I want to talk about is the color of my machine. So I'll put a picture of my machine in here in case you haven't seen it, but I have the custom metallic colors, and mine is in, I believe it was cappuccino and copper. I love the color of my machine. 1 year later, it's still beautiful. I think I ordered the first machine in the metallic colors that they sold outside of the ones they made amongst themselves. I love it. It's held up really well. The only thing I would say is your cylinders and your weights really should just be in a regular plastic, like the black or the white or one of the standard colors, because I have broken several weights. When they drop, that metallic filament does not hold up and they just shatter. But I've dropped my new black weights several times and they have held up just fine. So it's not a problem at all for the body of the machine, and for my yarn mast, all of that has held up great. But I would recommend cylinders and weights, things that you might drop. I would recommend not getting metallic filament for those. Otherwise, I'm very happy with the color of my machine. I still think it's beautiful. The next thing I pulled out of my box when I was unboxing it 1 year ago was the ring light. And I had already purchased ahead of time a plug-in adjustable ring light to use. And after having done it for a year and used several different things, my suggestion is that you just go on Amazon and buy a second selfie ring light. You can get the exact same brand, exact same thing for I think $15, $20. It wasn't a whole lot. And this way I can have my selfie light going, and while this one is, on, I have this one charging, and then when this one dies, I can switch. And then this one's on. It has 3 levels of brightness. I don't know if you can see it getting brighter. I really like it. It works well, but it doesn't hold a charge super long. So I went and bought a second one, and now I swap them out, and it's great. My adjustable ring light that you plug in worked fine. It's just that the cord was always in my way. And you could plug your ring light in and leave it plugged in to help it so it doesn't die. But again, for me, I was always having a cord in the way. So having 2 of these was definitely worth it for me. The next thing I'll talk about are Tuttle cylinders. So when I purchased my Dean & Bean circular sock machine, I purchased the kitchen sink package with the Tuttle upgrade, and I got everything that they sold, I think, pretty much. And the reality about the Tuttle cylinders is that they are very difficult to work with. In fact, Dean & Bean no longer sells them, and I don't know if that's a supply issue or a function issue or what, but you can't buy them anymore. So I have 2 Tuttle cylinders. I think there's a 90 some odd needle and an 80 some odd. I don't remember the exact numbers. And I have the ribber for it. I have never touched the ribber other than to go, oh, here's the ribber. And I have not used the Tuttle cylinders at all, except once. I used them each once just to knit a short 50-row tube with a hung hem, just to use them and make sure they worked, and that's it. My 86 one wasn't really hard to use, but or 80, I'm not sure it's 86. The 80 number one wasn't so hard to use, but the 90 number one was very, very difficult, and I've never had a reason to use them. I thought I might need them for my husband because he has big legs, big calves, but he uses a regular 72 compound cylinder just fine, no problems at all. So I don't use them. So I bought all that. It doesn't get used. Now, I know there are a couple of people in the Dean & Bean Facebook who are looking to purchase the Tuttle cylinders, and I have debated selling mine, but I haven't sold mine yet because, I don't know. I just keep thinking I might someday trip across some reason to use them. So I still have them. I don't plan to get rid of them, but they are definitely not necessary for anything. The next thing I'll talk about is the clamps. This is another one that if you are thinking of ordering a metallic filament for your machine, I suggest requesting the clamps in a standard filament. I had lots of trouble with those breaking. In fact, I really think the 3D printed clamps are just kind of for the birds. I have moved to these metal C-clamps. You can get all kinds of versions of these. I actually had a plastic set of my husband's that I was using, and he was tired of never having clamps, so he went and bought these for me. They work just fine. I use 2 of these and 1 of these on my machine, just because of where my machine is on my desk and what's underneath my desk, like the support beams and things. 3 of these won't work, so I have to use 2 and 1. But they hold it on great. I have no issues with them. I like it. You could get a smaller, like just the traditional metal one would probably be smaller and a little easier to use, but I don't know why Dean & Bean continues to sell the 3D printed clamps. I guess other people must have better luck with them. Personally, I think they should just ditch the 3D printed clamps and come with some sort of more hardware-y C-clamp. That's my opinion. I didn't use the 3D printed clamps hardly at all. They broke. They sent me new ones. They broke. I just gave up. The next thing I want to talk about is the ribber. So I do have the compound cylinder ribber also. And anyone that's watched my channel for any length of time knows that the ribber and I are not friends. I had plans to spend some quality time with my ribber this summer, and it hasn't happened yet. And anyway, I only had maybe 2 or 3 weeks at the beginning of the summer where I really didn't have a lot of things planned or things I had to do. I made a ton of socks. I think I made 23 pairs of socks in the last couple of weeks. So I've definitely played with my machine, but I have been on a mission to get things done, and learning the ribber was not part of that mission. So the rest of the summer, I'm either going to be out of town or I have other things I've got going on. I probably will not pull my machine out again for a few weeks. And when I do, I don't know if I'm going to feel like fighting with the ribber or getting to know the ribber or whatever you want to call what that experience is going to be. I have knit 1 ribbed pair of socks and 1 ribbed cuff, and they were both an unpleasant experience, to say the least. The ribber works. I'm sure it's user error and just a need to practice. But since I can make a stockinette stitch sock so easily, toe up, cuff down, any kind of heel I want. It's really hard for me to be motivated right now to play with that ribber when I could just sit down and make a stockinette sock and be done. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure what I want to do with that, but I do have the ribber. Someday I may actually get to where I can use it effectively, but it's definitely not a quick and easy study. Most people I've heard have a very steep learning curve to get a hold of that ribber. So if you want a ribber, definitely buy one. I mean, they work, you can learn to use them, but just be aware. It is going to take some motivation and dedication to get the hang of that. I also am still calling my sock machine Sock-a-Latte. I think in our video that I've linked down below, my mother came up with the name Sock-a-Latte as we were opening it up, and I thought that was funny, and nobody had come up with a name that was funner, so it's kind of stuck. So she's still Sock-a-Latte, and probably always will be at this point. The next thing I think we talked about were cone winders. So the Dean & Bean cone winder is a drill attachment, and I have several videos showing me winding cones and complaining about winding cones. It's still not my favorite activity, but I will say that this is an affordable cone winder and it is effective. Like, it took some practice. I had to get the hang of winding cones. I still do better with a 50-gram ball than I do 100, but I can absolutely wind perfectly good cones with my cone winder. Now, sometimes I have to wind a cone twice. Like, I may wind a cone and then I start to use it and it just barfs or unravels or comes all kinds of problematic. So it's sometimes, sometimes I have to wind one twice. That's just the way it is. I don't have a problem with that anymore. I don't have to do it as often as I used to. My drill, at least, I can control the speed by how tight I pull the trigger, so that's nice. And I can even make it slower, like I can slow down the max amount of speed too. So my drill has a lot of control. I have learned I mount it on my desk with my handy dandy C-clamp so that I don't have to hold it. And I have another clamp. It's not this kind, but it's like a quick release. Sometimes I'll even use the clamp to hold this down if I'm going to wind a lot of cones, just to keep my hand from getting tired. But I've kind of got this worked out. I mean, in the future, if one of the electric automatic cone winders became available, I'm sure I would want one because, let's face it, I like to own everything that has to do with my hobby. But it's not imperative. I am making my cone winder work just fine. I do suggest buying extra cones, because even though you think 6 or 8 or however many I got in my package is a lot of cones, you would be amazed how fast you fill your cones with yarn. And always, 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 always keep one cone empty in case the last ball you wind becomes a hot mess and you have to rewind it. So always leave one empty cone. So, trust me, it's good advice. All right. Now, my color work base. So I really have not explored color work with my Dean & Bean sock machine. It has to be done manually. You take the entire yarn feeder apparatus off your machine and just manually manipulate the 2 strands of yarn. I tried it like once for 5 seconds. Like, I did not really give it a good go, but I was not impressed. I found it to be something I was going to have to learn. I was going to have a learning curve. I couldn't do it right away and haven't messed with it since then. So it probably would work well if I cared enough to mess with it. Mr. Duck Potato is doing a dance for you. It's really too bad you can't see it. Sorry, guys. It's pretty funny. Go away. Anyway, if I sat down and worked at it, I'm sure I could pick up doing the color work. I can knit stranded color work by hand. It's also not my favorite thing to do by hand, but I'm capable. So I'm sure I could learn to do it if I ever sat down and tried. I just haven't been motivated to put forth the effort. However, I like the color work base because when I knit regular stockinette socks with contrast heels, toes, and cuffs, I can put, I don't have the base like handy, it's put away, but I can put both cones of yarn on the base and just slide it over. And it's just, I mean, I could just move them. It's not like it's hard to just move a cone out of the way and bring up another one, but I just find that I like having them both there, and I like having the cone on a base. And your regular Dean & Bean sock machine does not have any sort of base for just a single cone. So I like being able to put them on the base. The base is weighted. It stays really sturdy and still while you're working, and I like that a lot. Weights. So I bought the kitchen sink package. It came with weights. Now you can make your own weights. Dean & Bean tells you how. It is not a thing that you have to purchase from them. And I don't have mine out to show you, but they're just black, like really machine knit, stretchy knit socks that have been turned into a weight. Anyway, I like them. I like that I didn't have to make them. They are effective. I use them all the time. I would recommend buying the weights. They work great. If you wanted, you could make an extra large one on your own. Sometimes I feel like my largest weight's not quite heavy enough. That's why I was saying sometimes I try to put the large weight and then the tiny weight together, and they don't really work well, but I probably could put them in my V-hook bag, but I told you I don't like to use my V-hook. So I wouldn't mind an extra large weight that's just a little bit heavier, but I've been making it a whole year without one, so I will probably not worry about it. I'll probably just keep going with what I got. Cylinders. So I have all of the cylinders that Dean & Bean makes, except for the 72 Tuttle. I have a 72 compound, and they don't make the Tuttle anymore anyway. I use my 54 cylinder rarely. I use my 64 cylinder rarely. I almost always use my 60 or my 72 needle cylinder. I could have done without the rest and probably never noticed the difference. So if you're wondering what size cylinders to buy, I can make, my friend who wears a size 6 shoe, she can wear a 60 cylinder. I just make the tension real tight. All the way up to my husband who wears 12.5, 13 on my 72, and I make the tension a little looser. And everyone I routinely knit socks for fits in that range. So I have one friend who likes the 54 cylinder, so I knit tubes for her on that. And my sons who have, they're like growing, my middle school age sons, sometimes I use the 64 cylinder for their socks because it's a nice in between, but I really could make do on a 60 or a 72 for them. I just use the 64 because I have it. It really isn't necessary. So if you're just wanting to get two, I would recommend the 72 and the 60. They seem to cover most of my bases really well. Additional items that I have bought that are not from Dean & Bean or that are from Dean & Bean and I bought extra. We'll go over that. So one thing I love, can't praise enough, is this thing right here. This is the Ultima single cone thread stand from Amazon, is where I got mine. And it is for sewing machines, really. And you put your, your thread and then you put your spool of thread here and then you thread it through here and then attach it to your sewing machine. I prefer this. I use the yarn mast on my machine, but I go through this also. And so I use it both when I'm actually knitting the socks, and I also use it to thread the yarn through when I'm winding cones. And I find it just prevents knots, or if there are knots, I see them faster and I catch them before it gets tied up in my cone or tied up in my sock. I feel like it evens out my tension and just makes everything easier and works better. I really like it. Do you have to have it? No, absolutely not. But it wasn't very expensive and I use it all the time. And my husband really likes it because he used to have to do that for me when I would make a mess, and now he doesn't. So he's very happy that I have that. My next thing that I highly recommend is my twice sheared sheep sock ruler. I think that this is going to be backwards because I am using my camera's selfie setting, so it's not going to make any sense, but I love my sock ruler. So originally I never have had good luck with the Dean & Bean formula for their socks. Like, I follow the formula, I count the rows, I do everything it says, and the socks didn't fit me or whoever they were intended. So early on, I actually got a whole set of they were cylinder specific row charts showing the number of foot rows required for any specific foot length or shoe size while knitting the foot on a circular sock machine. And I got these as PDF downloads via Etsy from Sock Machine Stuff. So those, I did a much better job at getting socks that fit the person for whom they were intended. So I recommended those for a long time, but you still had to knit a gauge swatch in order to do the math. So, I mean, that was just time, time to knit the gauge swatch, and then you had to recone it, and then you had to actually knit the sock. They fit well most of the time, but they weren't perfect. And when I heard about this, I thought, I'm going to give it a try. So this is the Twice Sheared Sheep Slap Bracelet Sock Ruler. Mine is an older version. It has the shoe sizes on one side and instructions on the back. I think the newer version that my mom just got has the shoe sizes on the one side and an actual ruler on the back. So that is kind of cool. But it just, I knit my socks toe up, I stick it in my machine, I knit to the shoe size that I'm aiming for. I have done literally like 20 some odd socks with this, and they all fit the person for whom they were intended. And I only had to knit 2 socks. I didn't have to knit any gauge swatch. I didn't have to do any math. I just had to write down what my row count was so that I could knit the second sock the same. Love it. Got mine from Miss Babs Yarn, but you can get it from Twice Sheared Sheep and several other places. Highly, highly recommend this. Also works for hand knitting, which I'm going to be knitting my first pair of hand knit socks in a while. I think I knit 2 pairs of hand knit socks this last year, maybe. Anyway, I have plans to knit a pair of hand knit socks, and I'm going to be using my sock ruler to measure that out. The other thing that I have been enjoying lately is a standing desk. So my desk is actually pretty high, and I have been fairly comfortable knitting sitting at it for a while. But when I was making 23 pairs of socks in 2 or 3 weeks, I did get kind of sore up in here from like hunching over my machine. And so I got my husband to pull his old standing desk from when he used to work in an office out of our garage and set it on my table and raised it up and was able to work standing up, which was such a nice relief. It was a really good change. Felt really good, eased up my back pain. The downside is that my desk with the standing desk on it is even all the way lower down. It's still too high for me to write at or work at or anything. So for now, if my standing desk is on, I have to raise it all the way up and work under it, which is probably not like realistically going to be a way I can go forward with. But for the summer, for right now, it's working. Who knows? I may get used to working underneath it and it may not be an issue. I don't know. But for right now, we're just going to keep playing with it. Someday, hopefully in the near future, I will actually purchase a desk dedicated to my sock machine. And when I do, I am definitely going to pick one that can be raised and lowered so that I can work both sitting and standing, because it's really nice to be able to change your physical position after a little while. Yarn. I have knit on my sock machine all kinds of yarn. The only thing I've really had an issue with is Patton's Croy. I do not like knitting it on my machine. It is difficult to work with. I can get it to do. I mean, I did it successfully, but it was not an experience I'm in a hurry to repeat. Otherwise, my sock machine has worked well with all kinds of yarn. Big box yarn, hand-dyed yarn, different bases, even straight wool with no nylon. It has worked well. I am very happy. Acrylic yarns work fine. I'm very happy with that. All my yarns that I've tried, except for the Croy pattern, were easy to work with. Now, excuse me, my notes here. Okay, I have made a lot of socks on my machine in the last year. Today's technically 1 year and 1 day since I opened it, but I didn't make any socks today. So we could talk about the socks I've made in the last year since I purchased and received my sock machine. I have made 9 sock tubes that I gave away, either to friends, well, all to friends. I made them for friends and gave them to friends out of their own yarn usually, but sometimes out of my yarn. Sock tubes are fun and easy to make. It takes me still about an hour, give or take a little, to make a 100-gram sock tube. I mean, I sit and watch a movie and do it. It's fine. Doesn't take too long. It's easy. It's mindless. It's no problem. I have made 9 pairs of what I call hybrid socks, and these are really probably my favorite socks to make for myself. That's where I knit the tube on the sock machine, and then I knit cuffs by hand, and then I cut in heels and toes. So those are my favorite way to do it, because I can do a hand ribbed cuff, which is still my favorite cuff. I can wear the rolled cuff that is kind of standard on a sock machine, but I really like a ribbed cuff. And we talked about my ribber. It doesn't happen. So those are kind of the number one way I knit socks for myself, although I knit the other kind for myself as well. I also like to do contrast heels, toes, and cuffs easier that way, and I feel like I can get my stripes to line up really easy that way without having to like plan where to start my yarn and risk my stripes being just a little off. when I'm cutting into my striped tube, it's very easy to visualize where I want to put the heels, toes, and cuffs so that they line up and match. I do have one successful pair of ribbed tube socks. I used the CSM Adult Tube Sock pattern from Ravelry by Jane Harrison, and it was not the pattern's fault. The pattern was easy, beautiful, fine, no big deal. It was the ribber, and the ribber is primarily me, user error. Just, I don't know how to use it real well, and I struggle with it. I drop a lot of stitches. The way the ribber works, you can't see down into your work to fix the drop stitches very easily, and I found it very stressful. I still will eventually probably maybe figure that out. I don't know. We'll see. I have knit, however, 26 pair of toe-up simple socks for CSM by Dean and Beans. 26 pair of socks in the last year. And I have made 5 of the CSM heel tab no-show socks by Sue, and I'm not really sure how to pronounce this, Vuneski, something like that. And then I have knit 29 in the simple sock for CSM pattern. Probably my favorite is the toe-up sock. I think I taught myself to do that first. Then I switched to the cuff down and knit mostly in cuff down and with Kitchener the toe. And lately I've been doing toe up again. I can do either one. Really, neither is harder than the other. It's just preference. James?
Sorry, I have to get some. I'm about to leave. I'm very late. I'm sorry. You almost done.
I don't know what to do with husbands. Do you know what to do with husbands?
Love them.
My husband says, love them. I don't know if you can hear him. Surely you can hear him. He's very loud digging in the freezer.
No, I'm not.
Are you done?
Yes. Sorry.
He's not sorry. Don't believe him.
I'm not sorry. I'm going to be out in the Texas heat.
He needs ice packs. It is hot out here, y'all. I think it's like 96 degrees, but feels like 106 or some obscene number like that. It is hot. Where was I? So 29. I did 29 simple sock patterns, 26 toe up, 5 of the CSM heel tab no-show socks, for a total of 70 socks this year, y'all. I knit 70 socks. That is on average more than 1 sock a week. And there's, I think the most I knit by hand in a year was maybe 6, maybe. So yeah, it is, it does what it was intended to do. You will have socks, and I love them. I also knit 1 scarf, and that was also kind of a hybrid. I knit a color work end by hand and put tassels on it. Then I knit a tube that I manually striped, and then I left it unfinished. It was a prop for a friend of mine who was making a movie. So I've done that also on it. Even though it's not done, I consider it done because it's done, movie done. That's what we called it. It's movie done. So yeah, and including my learning pieces and my practice pieces, I've actually knit 91 projects on my sock machine. So she's gotten lots of use in her first year. I have had a few breaks. I think I broke one of the little flippers inside and I had to order new. I broke my yarn mast. So my heel spring actually came broken, and Dean and Bean replaced it. No problems at all. It happens. Things happen. That was no big deal. But then I dropped it, and that was later after a while. I dropped it and broke it, and I had to order another one. And then I thought, well, I'll just switch out one from my colorwork mast and put it on my regular mast so I can still use my machine. And while I was switching it, I was screwing it, and it broke. And that one I didn't drop. I don't know why that one broke, but again, Dean and Bean sent me new ones. It was not a problem, and they really send things very fast. So I got all my pieces, but it's plastic. I expect there to be some wear and tear, and like I just said, I have knit a lot on this thing in the last year, so to have to replace one internal part I didn't think was any big deal. I'll probably just maybe every year order a little extra set. You can get, I don't know how much they were, $5 or $10, the little tiny flipper pieces you can buy, so that I just have some handy. I'll show you here what it looks like. Maybe not. I thought it was right in here. Oh yeah, it is. There it is. So the replacements, they come like this, and you can get all of the different internal parts. You can see my broken one here in the package. Sorry about the crinkling. But when you order it, it just comes with the whole set. So I've got extras for the other things that aren't broken. And quite frankly, my husband just put in, he did like some kind of plastic super glue. And I worked with the broken part until the new one arrived. So I didn't even lose any time really, which was nice. But yeah, so I have loved it. I would love to know if you guys have a sock machine. What kind do you have? What do you like about it? I still dream of one day owning an Erlbacher. They're metal and they are an absolute work of art. I have not started a savings account for that like I did for my Dean and Bean because it would be a lot of money, and now I have a Dean and Bean, so it would be a duplicate purchase at least for, but still someday I'd like to have an Erlbacher. They're gorgeous. Maybe I will, you never know. For today, what I'd like to do is, since it is sort of Sock-a-Latte's birthday, as it were, I thought maybe we should give away a present. So I've had a few people tell me that they are hesitant to buy a sock machine because they're not sure if they would like the fabric that the machine creates. So I thought it would be fun to do a giveaway. And I will give away one pair of socks knit on my Dean and Bean sock machine. To your shoe size and your specifications. If you are interested in winning a pair of socks, completed socks, so not just the yarn or a tube, but an actual complete pair of socks knit on my machine, then comment below and tell me what your favorite color is. And I will pick a winner probably in a few days, maybe a week. Let's say a week. Today is June 29th. So I will pick a winner on July 7th and post it on YouTube, announce the winner. If you are the winner, you will need to email me at the YouTube email that I have in the description box down below, and I'll be in contact with you and we'll work out what kind of yarn you like, what color, what size you need, things like that. And I will give away a pair of socks. One more thought. The sock prize is open to all participants in the continental United States. I'm sorry to have to limit that. My other knitting channel, I have shipped around the world as I could, but for this particular prize, I do need to have winners be in the United States just because it becomes cost prohibitive to ship overseas. Hopefully you guys will enjoy that. Thank you so much for being with me this long. I think this video has been like half an hour and my husband's interrupted it twice. So appreciate it if you're still hanging out with me. If you haven't already, please hit like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when I post things. I know I post a lot of different things on the same channel. I always try to title my videos so it's real easy for you to tell, if it's a sock machine thing or a knitting thing or a kid thing or a family thing. That way you can see real quick if it's a thing you want to watch or not. I divide everything up into playlists, so it should be pretty easy for you to sift through and see what you want. I really appreciate your support. My channel was at 497 subscribers this morning, so it's been just over a year and I'm so close to 500. It would be really fun to hit 500. I appreciate every single one of you. Everyone has been very kind and gracious about my little amateur videos here that are done on my cell phone in my kitchen. But I hope you're having fun. I have a lot of fun doing it. I am excited about it. I thank you again for choosing to spend some time with me. I hope you had some knitting in your hands, or Diet Coke in your cup, or coffee if you're a coffee drinker, or whatever it is you like. I'm going to say a quick prayer thanking God for the many blessings that He has given us, and I'll see you back next time. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so very much for all of the many blessings and the ways that you bless us continually. Lord, the sun shines on us and it rains on us, and the air we breathe is free. These are gracious gifts that you give, your benevolent grace to all. And then to my family specifically, Lord, you have been so very gracious, providing for us and all of our needs and many of our wants. And we appreciate you, Lord, and praise you because you are awesome and amazing and wonderful. And ultimately, no matter what we do or do not have, you have given your Son, Jesus, to die on the cross and forgive our sins. And I thank you, Lord, for that Jesus has made us right with you, and that we have the hope of eternity in your presence. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.